Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. My name is Justin, and this is
This is I have a nickname. It's Derricker. Not a very good
Derricker.
one.
I
I was
like.
wondering if you I was wondering if you'd notice.
Oh, I haven't. No, I haven't seen it. I thought it was. Wouldn't it be Derricker?
I don't know. I couldn't really think of anything that good, so
No, no, no. I like Derricker.
just go on with it for now.
That's funny. That's funny. Oh God. I mean, I thought my nickname at the live was funny. Maybe I should be the Justorian.
There you go. I didn't even remember that.
I think no that yeah no it wasn't that it was something like I don't know, but just Torian sounds good. Okay, well, I mean, I think that we have to redo our intro now. This is great. I love it. Cool. All right. Awesome. Well,
It only took us half the book to come up with
come
some
up with
nicknames.
nicknames. Yeah, but I feel like Soft Pillows and Bird That Steals, they were just like instant, They're just so much more I don't bombastic. I can't think of a better word.
Eh,
They're just something you just latched onto like immediately. Whereas with Deadhouse Gates, just I guess there aren't those. There are, but yeah, nickname quality, I don't know. So I'll just stick with being the Justorian.
and I'll stick with Derricker for now, unless we come across something better.
Right, yeah. I suppose we could probably lay that out. We could do something like that.
Just take it a chapter at a time here as it comes.
Right, yeah. Maybe there'll be something in here where we can, change our nicknames. But yeah. But dude, how you been?
Pretty good. Weekend's going by too fast again. It was a long week, fast weekend. So went to the hockey game last night, playoffs for my Mavericks, and they played Ferris State, which is out of Michigan, and they were the 6 seed, so they upset the 3 seed and met us. And I mean, it didn't even feel like a playoff game. We ended up winning 7-2.
Jesus.
But I mean, really, the game was closer than the score indicated. Ferris State hit 2 or 3 posts, so I mean, it had the potential to be a different type of game. And then the other semifinal was Michigan Tech and Northern Michigan, and Northern Michigan was the 4 seed, I believe, and they upset Michigan Tech, who was the 2 seed. So next Saturday we'll be playing Northern Michigan for the conference tournament championship and the auto bid into the NCAA's the big tournament. So
Dang.
we got a pretty good shot to get into the big tournament, regardless of what happens. But I'd feel better if we just won Saturday.
Okay.
And then this morning I had a hockey game early this morning, which always kind of sucks when there's a time change. But what do you do?
All right. Yeah. Maybe just start an hour later. The logic would indicate that you lose an hour, so you should get an hour back.
I don't know. Yeah, the
It's
hockey
on
arenas
a fucking
they're t- they're
yeah.
tied up for time. So, but we ended up our playoffs started, and we are the 5 seed, so we played the 4 seed, and we ended up winning in overtime 4-3. So it was fun. A good way to start my morning, and our tournament's double elimination, so we would have been playing Wednesday regardless. But we'll at least be playing next Sunday for sure too. We'll see what happens from there.
Well, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Congrats on the win.
How about you?
This whole week felt like a Friday, but with none of the benefits of it actually being a Friday. So, and then it was Friday night. My kids had their first sleepovers with some friends, so that was kind of cool. But nerve-wracking at the same time. And then while they were sleeping over at their friends' places, Danny and I went to Hinkley, which is like an hour and 40 minutes away from where we live, to go
Oh,
see.
did you go to Black Bear?
No, Grand Casino.
It's Grand Casino there. I thought that was Black Bear.
I don't know. I'm not much of a gambler because I'm not really lucky when it comes to that kind of shit. So I've got mouths to feed. I'm not going to gamble whatever money I have away on the hope that I'm going to win when I know it's a rigged system. So I'm good.
But you could hit it big.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm all right. I'd rather not risk my money.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
But yeah, we went to the Grand Casino to see Everclear, Lit, and then Marcy's Playground. And, I'm an extreme metalhead, like these guys are cute, but I'm not, I'm not, I didn't know any of their songs outside of like
What?
the super ones that were like super famous. Like, Lit's the song that was in American Pie. Like obviously I knew that because that was like my anthem when I was a teenager. So
Sleeping with your clothes on, that song? I can't remember what it's called, but is that the
yeah.
one? I fucking hate that song. Like I would have been if I wish I would have known because that would have been fun to go. I love Everclear.
Oh, did not know that. Yeah, he
Oh,
Danny got a picture with the lead singer, Art. I think that's his name.
yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Art.
So that was cool. Yeah, it was all right, but I think it was like during the transition from Lit to Everclear, I went to go get hit on, or I went to go get, I did get hit on, but I went to go get the lady and I just a couple of pops to drink, and then this like, I don't know, if like the dictionary was like a physical, like if there were like physical descriptions, like this would have been the one for white trash. Lady comes up to me and is all like, "Are you here by yourself?" No, I'm not here by myself. And she's just like, "Oh, well, why are you standing in the line by yourself?" I'm like, "Well, I'm getting the girlfriend and I something to drink." "Oh, what are you guys gonna drink? Just some sodas? You're not gonna have any alcohol?" "No, I don't drink." I like to fuck with people sometimes. She's
She
just like,
probably wanted to take you up to her hotel room.
"Really?" Her boyfriend was right there.
I mean, you might have been throwing keys in a fishbowl or something. I don't know.
I mean, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not. I don't want an Eiffel Tower. I'm not. No eye contact during a Devil's Three-Way. I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine. Even if it was just her, I'll pass. I'm good. Thanks. Ugh. God, and they like fucking reeked of cigarette smoke. Ugh. I
I
can't stand.
suppose you could smoke in there. I suppose, huh?
Yeah,
Or
there's
no?
like a dedicated smoking section, but I'm not.
Oh,
I haven't smoked cigarettes in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. So
I
yeah, it was
got you.
interesting. I guess I don't know. Getting hit
That's
on is
funny.
weird. I'm not even flattered by it. I'm good. No thanks. No thanks.
You still got it, Justin.
Yeah, and she put her arm around me
Oh,
and like rubbed the,
oh.
the top of my back, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna just move further away, And then I told Danny about it, and she was just like, "Where is she? Where is she?" I beat her fucking face.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So, but hey, what do you say? Should we eat some hay?
Maybe we could go out and play.
Right. Yeah, guess. I feel like it's been a long time, but it was really only last weekend that we did our wrap up with Lee and Maura.
It's
But
been, I guess, technically 8 days, but it does feel like a long time. So
it, yeah, it definitely does. But yeah, I guess it was such a cool episode, and I just want to take a moment to mention all of the interaction that we had via chat. Jan, Waldo. I feel like there were a couple of others, but Waldo and Jan were the ones that were interacting the most, from what I recall. And we have a new patron, Derek.
we do. Yeah, we should definitely make sure to thank our patrons. Jan, like, as you mentioned, active in the chat on the live cast. I guess I didn't see that end of things. Just I suppose since you were kind of coordinating it, that was on your end. But Jan, the picker pies, which I think we're both probably. I'm feeling more confident that it's going to be you getting the pie in the face. I think you're feeling that way.
Yep. I'm just waiting for that chapter where it's just like, yep, Absolar Sheik.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's going to
Justin.
be coming up here pretty
Sucks to
quick, I
be you,
think.
dude. So
Luciana, our second Patreon, and our newest, our third and newest, we have Ryan, the topological. Ryan, I don't know, maybe it's been a month or two, but he sent me a Twitter message with the map of the Malazan world. And yeah, so I like the name he came up with there. So I think that'll stick. Unless he really hates it and says something, then we can change it. But for
oh,
now,
of course, yeah.
I hope he thinks it's cool.
Yes, I hope so as well. And Luciana, when you listen to this, please, I guess, give us some ideas as to what you would like your nickname to be. If you're
If you
like,
want
you know
one.
what, go ahead, make it all up by yourself. Just let us know. I think Patreon nicknames are going to be fun. So
Yeah, it is fun.
definitely. Yeah, I guess we should probably get into chapter 11 of Deadhouse Gates here, our 14th
Yeah.
episode, and we have two epigraphs.
Yeah. Do you want to take the first one and I'll take the second one, and then you can just roll into your first section there?
That sounds great, Dereker. So we are now starting the subbook, The Chain of Dogs, and this is the epigraph for this subbook. When the sands danced blind, she emerged from the face of a raging goddess, Shaik Bidithal. I don't know if that's her last name or not.
I feel like that's a place. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is this Apsalar as Shaik writing about this?
I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway.
Our epigraph just for the chapter. If you seek the crumbled bones of the Talan Imus, gather into one hand the sands of Raraku, the holy desert, written by Anonymous.
All right. Well, here's our first section from chapter 11 of Deadhouse Gates here. Culp felt like a rat in a vast room filled with ogres. Any minute he would be crushed underfoot. Never had entering his... every time I hear this, or every time I see this word, I think of mean ass. But it's Mina's Warren had it felt so undesirable. There were strangers here. He felt like a small, cowering creature. For the moment, his senses told him he was alone, yet he still trembled with terror. Within his mind, he reached back a ghostly hand, finding the place where his body existed. He was sitting physically in the captain's quarters, where a restless Hebrick stood watch. The others were on deck looking at the horizon on all sides. They needed a way out. With the Elder Warren flooded, the Solanda would row infinitely. To get out, they needed to find a way to shift Warrens. Culp was pissed at his own Warren's limitations. If he had had another Warren that was accessible to humans, he wouldn't have this problem. Culp was seeking to find a way to the mortal world, and it was proving to be an issue. His other concern was how was he going to bring a ship with a crew of people on it. He had hoped to find inspiration when he was within his Warren, like a thunderbolt striking and showing him a sign, like a giant fucking arrow pointing at the solution. He recalls a saying by Fisher Keltoth, who had said that poetry and sorcery were the twin edges of a knife in a man's heart. Culp admits to himself that he felt stupid in Mianas as he did in the cabin. Culp has a thought about how there must be a way to trick their way out. Could reality itself be fooled into an unreality? His senses changed pitch, and he was no longer alone. The thick and swollen air of the Minas Warren, where the shadows were textured like ground-up glass, had begun to bulge as something huge approached. A sudden thought entered Culp's mind. He thought possessed a certain elegance, a building of pressure, an empty wake, a certain current, a flow. Could he do this? It wasn't water, but it was close enough. Culp slipped back into the cabin and tells Hebrick that they are about to go, and to let everyone know to get ready. Culp slips back into his warren and finds his anchor within his warren. The unwelcome was coming, a force of such power to make the feverish atmosphere shiver. The shadows around him dissolved. He felt outrage building in the air and the ground. Whatever was passing through this warren had drawn the attention of Shadow Throne, the hounds, or that warrens truly are alive. Culp recalls Sormo's ritual that had drawn them into the Talani Mass Warren. Culp curses and wonders how a soul-taken and Divers could possess that much power. He could think of only two, Animander Rake and Osric. He refutes this thought by saying that he would have heard if those two were back from where they went. The presence arrived, a dragon unlike any other dragon Culp had ever seen before. It was undead. The dragon flew past him, about 20 arm spans above. The mage felt it become aware of him. As the wind from the dragon's wake arrived, Culp hissed a few words of High Minas. He knew. The warren's fabric parted. A tear not large enough to pass a ship. However, or hovering between the Tisti Udor and Minas warren, Culp watched in awe as Solana's prow filled the tear, splitting it wider and wider. That awe turned into fear. Suddenly the ship seemed too broad, and foamy water started to pour in. Culp thought that he had really done it now. A wall of water descended on Culp, destroying his anchor within Minas. He was back in the Solana. The boat was pitching as it rode a wave. Hebert glared at Culp as he saw the mage arise from the chair. The ex-priest asked if Culp planned this. Culp tells the ex-priest that he did, and he scrambles from the captain's quarters. He tells Hebert to stay put. Due to the tearing of the Minas, the powers that lie within did not challenge the Unwelcome's passage. The damage to Minas was on a cosmic scale. Culp wonders if he destroyed his warren, but quickly realizes that he fools reality all the time. He should be able to close this rent. Culp scrambled on the deck and headed to the stern castle of the boat. He saw Gessler and Stormy steering the oar. He saw Gessler point towards the front of the boat. Culp turned and saw the vague, ghost-like apparition of the dragon. Culp watched as the head of the dragon turned its gaze in their direction. Culp turned and forced his way into the wind that was coming from the tear. He placed his hands and gripped the stern castle railing. The tear was already far away, but still visible. Culp panics a bit because that can only mean it was constantly getting bigger in size. Water gushed from within the wake left by the soul-taken dragon. That the breach did not spread out to all sides was due to the massive shadows Culp saw attacking the edges and being destroyed in the effort. The task of healing the breach was too overwhelming for the powers of Minas, that it couldn't help seal the wound that Culp had created. In Culp's mind, he calls out to Shadowthrone and every other ascendant within hearing. Illusion is his gift, and to believe. He let go of the railing and set his feet in a wide stance and raised his arms high. In the mage's mind, he saw that it would close, and it will heal. The tear before him started to stitch together the edges. The water slowed, and he pushed harder, willing the illusion to become real. Reality pushed back, and Culp's knees buckled. He grabbed the railing to keep from falling. No strength left. He was failing. The force that hit him from behind to the back of his head left him seeing stars. An unknown power swept through him. The power flung him upright and into the air, spread-eagled. The power held him, a will as cold as ice. The power was undead, and that the will that gripped him was a dragon's. The power seemed irritated and reluctant to act, but it grasped Culp's goal and gave him the power he needed. Culp screamed in pain as glacial fire swept through him. The distant tear closed. All at once, other powers were being channeled through the mage, other ascendants using Culp's illogic intent to join the game with dark happiness. In his mind, he curses them all to Hood, and that he takes back his prayers. With that, the pain was gone. The soul-taken dragon withdrew its attention. When the other forces arrived, he remained floating in the air. His limbs twitched as the powers continued to play with him. Not the indifference of the undead, but malice. He suddenly wished for the former. He suddenly fell, a tool done with and discarded. Stormy was at his side, offering him a skin full of wine. Culp drank greedily. Stormy explains that they ride the dragon's wake, but it isn't water anymore. The tear had closed up, and he congratulated Culp for his plan working. Culp tells Stormy that it isn't over yet. Stormy wonders if Culp can stand. He tells the mage that he was surrounded by blue fire, and he'd never seen anything like that. Culp was too proud to accept Stormy's hand, and tells Stormy to give him a minute, and he'll slip us from the Warren to their realm. Stormy asked if the ride would be rough. Culp said that he hoped not.
Nice job on that one, man. That was a chunky section there.
It was, and it was really confusing, but the more that I read into like the really one sentence details, the more I understood it. And even in reading this and just really thinking about how everything is working from like perspectives, there's a lot of switching. There's a lot of switching between reality, Minas, and then the Tisti Edur Warren. So it's super easy to kind of get a little lost in all of that. I think that I've got it figured out. So
Yeah, it definitely was challenging to read that. And I did read this chapter probably I might have got 3 times out of it, but I didn't get through it all at once. It was kind of broken up. But yeah, just to kind of figure out everything that's going on was kind of hard. But I really liked how he's just kind of willing what he wants to happen to reality, right? Like I thought that was cool.
yeah, it is really cool. And it's kind of this play on, I guess, the way that I'm looking at it, and maybe we could talk about it when we get to it later in this section, but when he is essentially conjuring the Shadow Throne and other ascendants to believe, it is kind of like when you believe in something, it becomes real. You know what I mean? Like how Santa and like the Easter Bunny are real to kids because they believe it.
Right.
So I think that was just a, whether that was intentional or not, I think that playing off of that, I guess maybe human construct, the more you believe in something, the more it becomes true. And that is exactly how I feel Culp is going about it. You know, he's trying to ask for help into believing that he can close this rent.
I don't remember if maybe I brought this up before in a different episode, but I feel like I did. But when I read him trying to like close the tear,
Yeah.
first of all, I just thought of like childbirth, like the boat was a child, like trying to be born and it didn't work. But then I thought of Culp and he's trying to close this thing. And you've seen Constantine with Keanu Reeves, right?
It's been a while.
But do you remember when he's like, I don't remember what he's doing, but he's like, he's bringing his arms together because he's got those tattoos on his arms to, I don't even remember what they do. It's been a long time since I've seen it too, but like, that's what I imagine. He's like, he's fighting to get his arms close together. I don't know. There's something there. It's just been a long time since I've seen that movie. I remember I really liked it. I think it brought the devil or something when he did that. But yeah, that's just kind of what I envisioned.
No, it makes sense. And it's such a beautifully detailed chapter. And I'm like, you know, I'm having all of it. Like, give it to me all. So it might take a little bit for me to get through my notes here.
Well, take it away, sir.
All right. Well, I thought it was really cool. I'll start this off. We kind of get a deeper understanding of like the rules around Warrens. Because we get a little bit of a deeper explanation at the beginning of the section, and Warrens are bound by peculiar laws and rules of nature that kind of played games with cause and effect. So it's just like, if you do something over here, it doesn't necessarily equate over here, but at the same time, this Warren, a different Warren, you do the same thing over here and it can do the same thing over there. So it's just like, I almost kind of feel like Warrens are like a really intricate way of explaining video games. Does that make any sense?
I would like to hear your explanation here.
So like with video games, depending on the type of video game that you want to play, you can kind of have this like sandbox experience, or you can kind of have this like open world experience. Just because you can do anything that you want to in these two different sections, there's still rules that you are bound to, right? Like you can't go outside of the boundary of the game. I mean, I'm sure that you can because people find that shit all the time. But like if you're just playing the game to play the game, you know, if there are areas that you think you can get to, but you clearly can't, I mean, that is essentially the rule of the game. You know, it's a peculiar rule. Well, it looks like I should be able to get up there, but at the end of the day, you can't. I don't know. I don't know why that popped in my head, but yeah.
And then you take a rocket launcher and Halo and shoot somebody up there and get up there anyways.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that there are ways to get up there, but it was not designed. It was not designed to get up there. And I know that as these warrens and their rules are being kind of explained, Culp explains to us, the readers, that there have been rumors of mages being able to like bend this reality. So I just assume those as like the hackers and the speedrunners. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just from now on, I'm probably going to think of Warren as like a video game.
Gotcha.
Just
Interesting.
the way that it was designed to function, like going back to the cause and effect statement. Like, for example, if there was a Warren for food, maybe Krups, right? If the Warren provided endless food, but one does not exercise, then that one gets fat, right? It was just
Right.
cool to think about how the Warrens behave with this rule. And then Culp also goes on to explain that he had heard of mages cheating those laws. So that's kind of where I bring the whole hacker thing. Yeah, I don't know. Just my abstract mind, like making sense of it, I guess.
I like where you're going.
So you don't think I'm crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy.
Okay, cool. So the other thing that I thought was cool was as they're transitioning from the Edur Warren to Minas, and I never really caught it before just because of all of the switching between different like places. But Culp is looking at the ship coming from Tisti Udur to the Minas Warren. Like he creates a rent from within inside the Minas Warren that Solanda transitions from Elder to Minas. Does that make sense?
I think so, and that was kind of one of the parts where I struggled a little bit. I felt like just trying to make sense of that.
Yeah, because he's trying to find a way to use these rules to transition from Tisti Udur to the Minas Warren. So, and he finds this because while he's looking for some type of sign in his Warren, the whole an arrow pointing to the fucking solution when I brought that up during the summary, he observes that the shadows were textured like ground up glass, right? Well, what else is glass? Sand, right?
Good call. I was going
Right?
to say glass is like glass.
So, but what else can sand and glass emulate? Waves like water, right? So it follows the rules of the Warren. And I think what he's doing is he's observing what he has to use within the Minas Warren. And the only thing that he can contrive is when he observes the shadows within the Warren as ground of glass or sand. So, to my understanding at least, he's going to use the sand and give it the illusion of water, thus transitioning them from Elder Warren to Minas. And it was really fun to sit here and try to break this down. And it was just so creative and genius to me. And I really wanted to share that. I feel like that is like the rich, deep detail of how it happened, like, and on top of the soul taken dragon that is just emitting this immense power within Culp's Warren, he's trying to transition, water to sand and then bring a whole ship over.
I would never have put that together.
Well, and look at where they end up, which we'll get to. That is, they're literally on top of sand. So Culp essentially used his Warren as the transitioning point from Elder to reality by finding something that he can use to create an illusion of water, which is sand. He used the sand, I guess shadow sand is what I'll call it, to transition from Edur to Minas and then eventually to reality.
That's quite the yeah, man.
So yeah, it was really, really, really cool and fun to like put all that together, because it's not by any means directly said like that. I mean, that is my interpretation. I still feel like part of me could be wrong on that, but then again, I'm not diving super deep into this theory online because I don't want spoilers. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part because yeah, we don't want to find something out, but
I mean, it seems too logical to not be true. I mean, he illusioned sand to be water so that he can transition the boat using the rules of the Warren because, yeah, that's the only way it makes sense to me.
I'm not going to try to argue you on it.
Yeah. You don't want to take a pie on this one?
Uh, no, but
No.
I also like. I mean, I mean, it makes sense. I think, but yeah, like I said, I mean, I definitely didn't. These are things I would not have picked up on. Just like my brain works in such a different way from yours that like I wouldn't have saw that.
Does
So
it
it's
add to
like,
your headcanon of the story or of the section?
yeah, it does. I think it's cool because it's like, oh, okay, well, like I didn't think of that, but as you're talking about it, I'm like, okay, like I can get on board with this.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. I think that's
So it's
also the
always,
beauty of this podcast too, though. So
yeah, yeah, I like hearing your ideas. And not that I don't have ideas too, but I think we both pick up on different things.
well, and I think we both have our strengths when it comes to the different things that you get in the book. Like with the whole Coltane battle in the last chapter, I was really struggling with that. And the way that you summarized and kind of explained everything made a lot more sense. And then, of course, again, thank you, Mr. Dillon, for sending us that video of the Sakala crossing. That also helped kind of put everything in place as well. So,
I never finished that. I got like halfway through it. I got to just where like the battle was starting, and then I had to go do something, and I'll have to get back to that. But yeah, that
yeah,
was a cool video.
it was a really cool video. It made a lot of sense visually for me. So, it kind of helped bring all of the detail and finalize it in a spot geographically, I guess.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that I thought was cool is that when I guess everything that was like when he was talking about, I think he was talking about in relation to the dragon. He talks about Shadow Throne within his Warren, where it was drawing their attention. And he kind of lists off these things like drawing the attention of Shadow Throne, the Hounds, or he proposes that maybe the Warrens are truly alive. And it's kind of dark to me to think about these Warrens as alive. Because if you recall, the Talan that went into the sky to fix the terror, he had to give up his soul to do so. So I don't know, just in this like really weird abstract way, like if the Warrens are indeed alive, then goddamn.
Goddamn is right.
And then I find it interesting. Well, not really interesting, but I love how Culp is freaking out about. I mean, he essentially thinks that he's ruined his Warren, and I think it was a great way to tell us that Culp was worried about the tear being too small, when in actuality, the ship simply forced the tear wider, and Culp is terrified because he thinks he's broken his Warren, and he doesn't think that he can repair it. And just the sea from the Tisti Udor Warren pouring in was so fast that it was just making the tear wider and wider. It was so cool to visualize that, like he's seeing the ship that he essentially put into motion between Warrens. Yeah, it was just cool.
The whole section was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to break apart. And the other thing that I thought was really cool was just, again, there's a lot of switching between Minas, Edur, and just within the Solanda himself. And it's essentially kind of one of those things where, like, to me, okay, ship Culp is physically on there, transitioning from Edur to Minas, and then spiritually, Culp is kind of just watching all this happen from his Minas Warren. And then when he goes back physically to his body, he is now transitioned from one Warren to the other physically. So it's almost kind of like, I guess I associate it with like an out of body experience, maybe, where like you're seeing yourself doing something in third person or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, man. I don't really have any. I don't have any thoughts on it. Not thoughts like yours, I guess.
Gotcha.
Sorry. I don't have much to add to the conversation there.
No, I mean, you're totally fine. I guess one thing that I have found clarity for myself is for whatever reason, I had it in my head that the dragon also transitioned between Warrens, but that's not the case. Again, and because of all of the switching, for some reason I had it in my head that the dragon started in the Edur Warren, but really it is because it is a soul taken dragon or a Diver, right? It started in the Minas Warren because he's accessing it in Raraku, where we know that Warrens are basically flooded with soul taken and Divers. But part of me wonders if he's making his way to the Path of Hands, kind of like the Denrabi in like the first or second chapter.
I mean, I kind of thought they were all going for the same thing, so that would make sense to me.
Right. But like I said, I don't know why I thought that I don't know why I thought that he existed outside of the Minas Warren. For some reason, I had it in my head that he was like maybe between the Warrens, like existing in what I imagined was like the Chaos Warren. And on top of the whole video game thing, I think of Warrens as like balloons. And I kind of talked about this during our wrap up. So this isn't necessarily new. But yeah, and the area between the balloons are either like the Imperial Warren or the Warren of Chaos, if that makes any damn sense.
But again, I just don't have anything to push back on you against with
No,
that.
no,
So
it's fair. I guess my other question though is I guess you, Derek, did you think that the Soul Taken Dragon was also causing havoc to the Minas Warren?
I'm not sure. I don't know because I wasn't sure where it came from. Like I'm sure, like I'm wondering who it is, and so yeah, I don't know. More questions than answers there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this should be something that we bring up with Erickson. If we're going to get him on board as our Deadhouse Gates wrap up guest, I would really like to have maybe him confirm or deny some of the events going on here. But I feel like the Soul Taken Dragon is kind of maybe wrecking the Minas Warren a little bit with its immense power because it from what I'm gathering is the shadows are so preoccupied with the dragon that they're unable to help close the rent. But then at the same time, when Culp asks for help from Ascendants, it is the dragon that he sees first, or that like hits him in the back of the head to help him, close up the rent that he created. So that part I'm not that's I guess I don't understand the motivation there unless it's just a completely different dragon. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't feel like it was a different dragon or a second dragon.
Right. I don't think so either. But then why would this dragon who's causing havoc on a Warren help a mage close up the Warren?
I don't know.
Yeah, it just, I mean, again, from what I understand, this is probably one of those sections that are maybe meant to be vague because from what we understand, this is like the first of 3 events with the Solanda. So I'm assuming that other things will get filled in, and I would imagine that the Soul Taken Dragon is probably a part of those other 2 perspectives as well. Maybe.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe. But maybe not too.
What?
I don't know. I'm just rambling.
No, it's okay. I feel like I've rambled. Now it's your turn.
Oh, I just said I'm having my last anniversary beer. That's a little over 12%, and I had some eggs and toast when I got home from hockey this morning, so I'm buzzing a little bit. So just rambling.
Just rambling. Well, that's good because rambling Derricker is funny.
Sometimes.
Anniversary beer, like our anniversary, or like you and your wife's anniversary?
Neither of those things. So Black Stack is a brewery in St. Paul. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I think I have.
I guess you could arguably rank it as one of the probably top 5 breweries in the state. I don't know when their it was their 5th anniversary. But yeah, this beer they brewed is for their anniversary. It's a 12.3% quadruple IPA.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's got some girth to it then, huh?
He is a big boy.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I guess I don't have anything else that I want to talk about in this particular section because I feel like a lot of it is really it's definitely interesting to read and a great way to start the chapter. And there were some things that were meant to be vague that I was able to pick out, and then there were things that I didn't. So I guess the soul taken thing I will have to put aside, and hopefully when we do come across those different perspectives, I can recall that. But yeah.
But I think you did a really good job with that section because, I mean, I'm thankful you had because there was a lot of things I wouldn't have picked up on there.
Okay, man. Well, appreciate that. But I'm ready to move on if you are.
Sure. Felsen watched Culp and Stormy trade drinks from the wineskin. She had felt the presence of ascendants. Of all of them, the dragon was the worst. She realized they were merely fleas to it. She turned and saw Bowden looking at the dragon, studying it. She thought they had no control on their travels. She thought that Culp had his magic. The old soldier had his stone sword, and the other two had their tusk god. And Heberick, well, he had nothing, while she had her pocks and scars. Bowden spoke up and said, "The beast prepares." Felsen interrupted him and asked if he was an expert on dragons also. Bowden said something had opened ahead. There was a change in the sky. Felsen saw it as well. She thought to tell Culp about it, but Bowden dove and grabbed her, wrapped her up to protect her. She had a thought that the dragon had found a warren and was using it to sear the fleas from its back. She could smell Bowden burning even as he ran, carrying her as though she was nothing. She saw Heberick, tattoos writhing in black smoke. He staggered and hit the rail of the ship and tumbled over the side. The Solanda burned, she thought. Bowden kept running, even after Culp tried to grab his arm to stop him on his way to the stern castle. She didn't see the Marines. They had either already been killed or were dying below deck. She did not struggle. She knew she couldn't escape. They fell together over the railing. The air was knocked out of her lungs as they hit the ground and rolled down a slope until they came to a stop. The fire was gone. As the dust settled, the sunlight came through. She knew for a certainty that they had returned home. Bowden groaned, pushing himself away. Looking at him, Felsen could see that what had remained of his hair was burned away. His shirt in tatters, and the bandages on his hands also gone. Somehow his skin was not burnt or split open. It had been if he had been tempered, she thought. As Bowden rose, he took a look at himself and seemed to be surprised. Felsen thought it wasn't what he was expecting. He survived, but now he feels different. She also wonders if anything could kill him. Felsen told Bowden they survived. Once Bowden was at his feet, Felsen also stood. They appeared to be in a gorge. It wasn't very wide, and about 2 men tall. Besides that, it was hot as Hood's balls out. She asked Bowden if he could see anywhere they could climb out. Bowden asked if she could smell Otadderel. She froze for a moment, thinking they were back on the island. She told Bowden she didn't smell Otadderel. Could he smell it? He said no, he couldn't smell anything, and it was just a thought. She replied it wasn't a good thought, and they needed to find a way out. She knew he wanted her to thank him for saving her, but she wasn't going to do that. Bowden said he felt heavier. Bowden didn't understand it, but something was different. He weighed more. It didn't make sense because he thought he was burning away to his bones. Felsen said she hadn't changed. They were able to find a way out and were overlooking some small hills. About 500 paces out was a figure, and at its feet lay a humped shape. Bowden said the one standing was Heberick. Felsen thought about who the other could be and if they were alive or dead. As they approached, they could see that Heberick's clothes had mostly burned away, but his skin was untouched. It was Culp at his feet. Felsen just said dead, not as a question. Heberick said not quite, though he hit his head on something on the way over the side of the ship. Felsen told Heberick to wake him up. She didn't plan to sweat to death while he rested. If he hadn't noticed, they were in the desert again, with no supplies. Heberick said they were on the mainland of 7 cities. Felsen wanted to know how he knew. Well, he just did. Culp came to and said to take a look around. Culp came to and sat up to take a look around, not liking what he saw. Fellison said the 7th Army was just camped over yonder. Culp replied that she was funny, and he took a sniff of the air and pronounced they were on the mainland. She asked why his hair didn't burn off. Heberick asked what the dragon's warren was. Culp didn't know. Maybe it was chaos, like a storm of it between warrens. He'd never seen anything like it, but that didn't mean much. After all, he wasn't an ascendant. Fellison snottily agreed, and Culp looked at her. He said her pockmarks were fading. This comment surprised Fellison, and she heard Bowden grunt. She asked what was so funny. He said that he had noticed it also, and it hadn't made her any prettier. Heberick told them all to knock it off. It was midday. It was only going to get hotter before it cooled off in the evening, and they needed to find shelter. Culp asked where the Marines were, and Fellison said they were dead. Less mouths to feed. Nobody made any comment on that. As they made their way, Culp said they needed to pick up the pace. He could smell a storm coming. Fellison said she could only smell sweaty Bowden, and for him to get the hell away from her. Speaking before he could really think on it, Heberick blurted out that he probably would if he could. Culp spoke up, demanding to know who this bodyguard was, where his loyalties lie. He didn't care before because Gessler and the other soldiers were there, but now he wanted to know why this girl had a bodyguard and who she was. Heberick said she was Tavor's sister. Culp was confused. Tavor? The adjunct? What was she doing in a mining pit? Fellison spoke, saying she was sent there. Just another on the call. Culp turned to Bowden, naming him a claw. Heberick said not a claw, and it would take a history lesson to explain. Culp said to start talking. In short, it was an old rivalry between Dancer and Surly. Dancer created a Black Ops group named the Talons. Surly used a similar model to create the Claws. The difference was that the Talons were used outside the Empire, while the Claws were internal. Secret police, spies, and assassins. Culp was a little confused. He said the Claw did covert op type shit now. Heberick said, yes, that was the case now, but when Surly became regent, when Kellenvet and Dancer went missing, she sent the Claw after the Talons. They fought it out to the end, and the Claw won. Surly became Lysine, Lysine became the Empress, and the Talon went the way of Dancer. Dead and gone. Or maybe there were a few left here and there, that they just seemed to be extinct, like Dancer, maybe. Fellison wondered what her sister was involved with, that she was working with Talons. Heberick continued saying, throwing her younger sister into shackles was to prove her loyalty to the Empress. Fellison interrupted, saying, not just hers, but their house. Since their brother is a renegade on Genebacchus with one arm, it made their family vulnerable. Looking at Bowden, Heberick said it all went wrong, though. She wasn't supposed to stay on Skullcap so long, was she? Bowden only shrugged and said it's hard to remove someone who doesn't want to go. Heberick asked Bowden, since the Talons are still around, who commands him? He said no one. He was born into it. There are a few around like him, first sons who inherited this secret. Dancer isn't dead. He ascended with Kellenved. His father was there in Malaz City on the night of the Shadow Moon. Heberick nodded, following the story. He said it was too close for Lysine. She either suspects or knows the truth. Bowden said he'd ask next time they chat. Fellison told Bowden she no longer needed a bodyguard, and for him to get lost and to take her sister's concerns right through Hood's Gate. Heberick tried to quiet her, and she told him to shut the fuck up and kept talking to Bowden. She will try and kill him every chance she gets. He will have to kill her to stay alive. Bowden made no reply and simply left. Fellison marveled at how easy it was to get him to leave. She actually felt a little conflicted on this. Heberick was all sorts of pissed off, saying that they needed Bowden more than he needed them. Culp said he was ready to drag Heberick along with himself after Bowden and leave Fellison on her own. Fellison dared them to do it. Culp ignored her and said he was here to save Heberick because he promised Duiker, and it was his call. Heberick said he owed his life to Fellison. Sneering, she said she thought he had forgotten that. Heberick only shook his head. Culp sighed and wanted to keep moving so he didn't melt, and he wanted to hear more about this idea with Dancer. Fellison thought to herself, this changed nothing. She would still get her revenge on her sister. Tavor's thug killed her lover. She would get her river of blood. Culp was speaking, and it jolted her back to reality. He said the storm behind them wasn't natural, and they should probably start running. He now knew where they were. Raruku, and it was the whirlwind. They ran for some hills looking for shelter, knowing they wouldn't make it. Moments later, they were swallowed by the sand.
Damn, chunky section, sir.
It was, but I really enjoy these sections with Fellison. I, she might be my favorite character. Just like it's, I don't know if it's just like her confliction and her like attitude or what, but she's for all the trauma and shit she's gone through. She's a lot of fun to read.
Do you think it's just because of her internal conflict where she's like debating on putting up her guard or being vulnerable?
I don't know. I really like how she kind of, she tells Bowden to get fucked, right? And
Right.
kicks him out of the group, and he just leaves. And then she's kind of like, "Oh, I didn't think it was going to be that easy." And she has some conflict over that, and just, I mean, you can see that this is a character she's had to grow up a lot faster than she should have to.
Right. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and she's still figuring herself out and still learning. I don't know. She's just so interesting to me, and I know I've said it before. Like I want good things for her, but I know they're not coming. So it's just kind of like I'm just rooting for her because she's like that underdog, but she's not going to win. I don't think.
No, that's fair. That makes sense. But I mean, I guess do you think that Bowden has left? Like left? Like do you think I mean, do you get the sense that it feels like the end of his journey? Like we are no longer going to read about him and gone?
Yes and no. He's gone from the group. I feel pretty confident about that. I don't know if they're going to chase him down or try to track him down, but I don't think he's done in the story.
Got it. I mean, I guess I'm conflicted as well, not to like compare that to Fellowson in any way, shape, or form, but I think it's interesting that there are similarities between what Fellowson may be feeling and like what a reader is feeling, particularly with Bowden just leaving. Cause like at the same time, it feels like a nice way to end ties, right? Like he's completed his mission for the most part, right? Or he's just so fed up with her shit that he just doesn't care anymore, you know? But I mean, at the end of the day, it feels like a nice way to segue him out. And I don't want that because at the same time, he's been kind of a major character throughout this part of the book. So, or, all the way through this book to this part that I still think that there's more. But at the end of the day, like what he is has been explained, you know?
Yeah, and I was happy to know we kind of got. I mean, I was kind of thinking he was a claw, and I guess I mean I was kind of right on that account. It was just like the counterpart to the claws.
Right.
So that was cool. But yeah, he definitely had like this feel. I don't know. He had a weird feeling.
Like there was something more to him, yeah.
For sure, for sure. I I don't know. I just Fellison seems she's got the most interesting story arc. I think I'm wondering most where she's gonna go, what's gonna happen, and that's what I look forward to reading most of the time. Is I just want to get more on her and see what's up.
Yeah. No, I would say that Fellowson, out of all of the characters, is probably my favorite as well. Just with all of the dynamic and the trauma and just the character arc that she's got and is currently making her way through is definitely the most developed of all of the other characters.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. I guess a few of my thoughts on this chapter, just right off the bat, we get, Fellison says she felt the presence of ascendance. And as far as we know, Fellison doesn't have any like magical abilities, right?
Yeah.
So like Culp or Heberick or Bowden even, I mean, any of these other people, can they feel it too? Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder if she has access to a Warren or something that we just don't know about yet.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is a good question. And I guess I always just associate it to people just like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, like whenever you get the feeling of like being watched, or like if you're watching a horror movie and you're immersing yourself more into it than you should be. That kind of a thing. Just that like supernatural hair on your arms and neck stand up is kind of the sense that I get it. And I think that more people are probably either more sensitive to it or not as sensitive to it. But yeah.
Almost like a sixth sense then.
Yeah, kind of. Like some people may be able to pick up on it and some people may not be able to. But yeah, I guess your guess is as good as mine on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if that'll develop more as the story goes or not. But it just kind of stuck out to me that she could feel it and notice the dragon most of all. I guess is she just noticing it because you can see the dragon? I don't know.
Maybe that is true, but also they do call the dragon in the last section like an apparition almost. So that's the part where I'm not exactly sure what it means by that. Like, is it sitting behind some clouds, and you could just like barely see it, or what specifically that means? Does it like exist outside of the Warren? And that's why Hebrick and Culp kind of have this like I don't know conversation about what Warren he accessed, you know. Yeah,
It's frustrating sometimes to have just more questions than answers.
right. And I mean, I would assume based on, the order of events is that the fire came from the dragon's mouth, right? Like he
I mean,
unleashed.
that's what I thought.
So, and again, that's kind of where I'm like super confused about the whole dragon part is because he's wreaking havoc on the Shadow Warren, but yet he helps close up the tear. But then he attacks the boat and everything that's on it. So, and again, I think that it's too vague, and I definitely think that I hope that it'll come around again in some of those other perspectives that we were told about. Because I mean, I'm wondering if maybe when Culp, called for help, that for whatever reason it was bound to do so. Like it didn't have a choice to not help, but then was maybe like instigated by something behind the scenes that we just haven't been told about yet, and that's why I got angry and blew the fire. I don't know. I mean, it's just that's the part that I don't understand. Is the whole dragon, why it wreaks havoc, helps, and then tries to destroy him. And did it make it to reality? I'm assuming so, right? So now it has escaped the Warren and is probably seeking out the path of hands.
A very real possibility for sure.
But what else you got for me?
Another thing that I noticed, and just that I don't know that I want to say that I like it, but just like Fellison's attitude, she just has this very like I don't give a shit attitude. So like Bowden picked her up and carried her right to get her off the ship, and she knew she couldn't like escape. She didn't even struggle. She didn't even fight. But to me, it just felt like she's like embraced death, like she did on the beach with the lightning, and then Hebert got in the way. So we've got all these different people getting in the way to like stop things for her. So you had Hebert getting in the way of the lightning or dissipating it before it got to the beach or whatever he did. You've got Bowden carrying her off the burning ship. Well, she's just like I don't know if ostracizing is the right word, but she's just putting all this like division into these people, and eventually she's gonna have. I feel like she's gonna have nobody left, and eventually something's gonna happen where maybe if she wasn't nasty to all these people, somebody would have taken the bullet for her, in a manner of speaking. But she's gonna. I feel like she's just pushing all these people away, and she's gonna get her. She's gonna get. She's gonna get killed at some point.
Yeah, she's being very careless. Yeah. And I guess I think this is why I fight so hard for wanting her to, I guess, get better, for lack of a better term, because I don't want to see her die. I don't want to see her push people away either, though. I mean, they don't have ill intent. They don't have the ill intent that caused all this trauma to begin with. But she just doesn't trust anybody, and that's hard to let go when you've been traumatized.
Yeah.
It's hard to let your guard down when you have been mentally traumatized.
And she's had more than her fair share of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Another thought where they're all talking, and Hebrick says things went wrong on Skullcap, and she wasn't supposed to be there so long. And Bowden, he shrugs and says it's hard to remove somebody who doesn't want to go. So I'm curious as to like really what the plan was, and even who is really directing Bowden to watch over her and protect her on Skullcap. Because he says nobody gives him orders, right? Like he was born into it.
I mean, I always thought, or I imagine that Tavor paid him to do it, and that's kind of why I think that it's a possibility that we may not see Bowden anymore, is because he essentially did what he was paid to do, right? So there's nothing binding him to watch her anymore because he got her out, and I think that that's all Tavor wanted him to do.
So you think that this was all just basically a front by Tavor
Well, yeah.
to put Fellison, to because like what happened if something went wrong and she got ripped to pieces in the chain gang going to the boats, even despite Bowden's best efforts to protect her.
I mean, at that point, it would be all on Tavor, right? I mean, she would be the only one that would have any feelings on the matter, I mean, Malazan is none the wiser. Lucine is none the wiser, which is still the case now. Nobody is none the wiser. I'm sure Tavor is probably at this point worried, but I mean, I guess it's a really fucked up way to show that you still care about your sister. I mean,
I guess we haven't seen anything from Tavor's perspective here to know what's going on in her head, so I
right.
guess it could be something like that, but it does feel like a pretty evil thing to do to your little sister.
Right. And then like, oh, well, I didn't really mean it. So here's this bodyguard that, is kind of an asshole. But I think that what is going on by, them saying it was kind of hard to plan something when they didn't want to go is, I mean, if you recall, she was high all the time and Beneth had her all over the place servicing whoever he wanted to get what he needed, you know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, but Felizin just got caught up in that, and she associates, for whatever reason, she still loves Beneth, even though she knows better. You know what I mean? Like she knows that it wasn't right for what he did, but she still loves him, and she has some animosity towards Bowden for killing him. And I think that is what stalled, is just that whole relationship there.
I think that's a good point. It'd be interesting to get some information from Tavor's point of view but it just makes me wonder, like, you couldn't get like some sort of like message to your sister saying like, hey, this fucking sucks, but I have to do this. This guy is gonna watch over you. Things will be okay. They're gonna suck, but it's gonna be okay. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm sure Lucine is probably skeptical about the Paran's family's loyalty, right? So more than likely, this was probably something where Tavor was forced to do, like you brought up. But at the same time, she feels guilty about it. So she does what she can do best, and that is send somebody to protect her.
I mean, I guess it's the best option you have.
Right. I mean, I guess in hindsight, it makes Tavor a little, like, slightly less, I don't know what word I'm looking for. Cold-hearted, than I thought. Because it just kind of seemed like in the prologue, it was just like, yep, rounding up my sister, don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it certainly seemed that way, that's for sure.
It definitely brings in, like, maybe she does actually care a little bit back into the picture. But another thing that I find really, like, juxtaposed is the fact that in the first book, we had a lot of perspective from the adjunct, whereas in this book, we have none.
So far, anyways.
Right.
But yeah, that's a hell of a way to show your sister you care. By sending her to the fucking slave pits.
But also, I mean, I can only assume that Tavor, also being brought up in nobility, has really no clue as to what the outside world really is. So like, how is it that she could have anticipated or even expected the horrors and atrocities to happen.
Oh yeah, there's no
Thought
way
in
she could have
mind,
predicted everything that was going to happen.
right? Or even be aware of that. That this is something that unfortunately happens on the daily.
Just how life goes.
Yeah, life's a bitch. But yeah, it was a cool section. Really loved hearing kind of the reveal of Bowden, because you always get the sense of like there's something more to him, and then haha, payoff. So I hope that he isn't gone and like we're not done reading about him. But also another thing that we need to talk about is like the Boar, Stormy, Gessler, Truth. Are these guys really dead?
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know.
I think they are. I think they're dead. Which just like makes the stories that they could share just absolutely fruitless, which is just the shitty thing about life. Because just one day it's over. Like, even after going through a bunch of things that you can now talk about or even write a book about. So I hope that they're not dead, but I kind of get the feeling that they are.
I'm not sure which way I lean really. I don't know.
Huh. Well, I guess I don't know. Did you have any other thoughts on this section here?
I don't think so.
All right.
I
Well,
think it would be good to move on.
yeah. And I think we're what, an hour and 15 minutes into it. We just did two sections.
Yeah, I think the rest of them aren't too long though.
No, they should go pretty quick. But yeah, third section here. Mappo is explaining that they were out looking for Shaik's corpse. Fiddler has questions about how she died, taking a moment to wonder if Kalam had been responsible. Mappo explains that it was the Red Blades that had killed her, or so the deck of dragons told him. Fiddler didn't think that the deck of dragons could be that precise, though. Mappo agreed, and that as far as he knew, it could not be that precise. They had been sitting on some benches within a burial chamber 2 floors below. Fiddler needed his injured leg and was reminded that even with elixirs and forced healing, that it still hurt. Fid had been in a dark mood lately, mainly due to frustrations around the number of days their journey had been stalled, for one reason or another. In a strange way, though, Pooh somehow reminded Fiddler of Quick Ben. Fiddler's thoughts jumped all over the place, from comparing Poost and Quick Ben to trying to understand and comprehend the Azath and the Deadhouse and the Lost City, to how they were just rumors and how it was crazy to seek them out. Mappo could see that Fiddler was lost in thought. Fiddler tells Mappo that every man reaches a point where some memories are unwelcome, and he feels that he's at that point. The sapper goes on to explain that he feels like he's trapped in a colossal scheme. Fid once held the ability to sniff the stuff out, but he can't this time. And Poost has him baffled. After some time, Mappo states that he thinks it's about Absalar. The sapper seems to agree that with the statement, and tells Mappo that it makes him worry, as she has been through enough shit. Mappo explains that Akarium seeks the answers to the solution, but the Troll couldn't help but wonder if Poost intends to force Absalar into a role she seems made for. Fiddler responded by asking, and what role would that be? Mappo reveals that Shaik's prophecy spoke of rebirth. Fiddler shakes his head violently as he tries to refuse this possibility, as Absalar has no care for this continent, as far as not as she's not from here, and she'll turn her back on this prophecy. The apocalypse will fizzle out, and the whirlwind will sink back into the ground. Mappo interjects that Poost places much significance on the uprising, and that it's far from over, at least what Poost believes. Fiddler wonders how many gods and ascendants are playing in this game. The sapper paused and looked at the trowel to ask if Absalar looks similar to Shaik. The big Trell shrugs his shoulders and explains he's only seen her once and it was at a distance. Mappo tells Fiddler that maybe looks aren't important, but simply the role of being born would be all that's needed. Fiddler snapped that Absalar wasn't interested in revenge against the Malazan Empire. Mappo inquired about the shadow god who once possessed her, though. Fiddler, who was now pacing, exclaimed that the god was gone and it was nothing more than memories. Mappo putting this conversation to bed, tells Fid that daily she remembers more. Fiddler didn't speak, but his thoughts ran wild. If Crocus would have been present, one would hear his anger. He was very protective when it came to Apsalar. Fiddler was sure that Crocus would try to kill Poost, even if the slightest news of Poost's plans of Apsalar. It was true that the lass was finding her memories. The scary thing, though, was that these memories were not much of shock to her. To Fiddler, this was a disturbing sign. He had told Mappo that she would refuse that role, but now Fiddler couldn't be certain. Memories came with remembrance of power, and who could resist the temptation for all that power? Take on this role, and she could topple an empire. Mappo is heard saying that they could be entirely on the wrong trail. Fiddler asks him to explain what he meant. Mappo explains that the Path of Hands, Divers, and Soul Taken, and that he thinks Poost is involved somehow. Fiddler asks Mappo to explain this. Mappo points below them and informs Fiddler that at the lowest level of the temple lies a chamber. On the chamber floor, there are carvings, like an elder version of the Deck of Dragons. Instead of houses, though, it's holes, more elemental and primitive. Fiddler interrupts to ask how that is related to soul shifting. Mappo makes a great analogy and explains that somewhere on the carvings of the chamber floor is the creation of the shapeshifters. Shapeshifters and Divers are old, even old in elder times, and no one species can claim them, their property, not even the four founding races. Mappo explains that shapeshifters cannot control each other, but there are special circumstances. The lure of dominance to command all shapeshifters, to use them as an army against one's enemies. Fiddler grunts and asks Mappo if he thinks an empire of Divers and Soul Taken would be worse than any other before it, and that it's easier to let it ride and let it become commonplace than it is to carve it out. Mappo agrees, but explains that what he said before was that he meant that there would be chaos. The shapeshifters are gathering to the promised gate to attain ascendancy and become the god of shapeshifters. Mappa reveals that they think the gate is below and that Poost is intentionally keeping it hidden and creating false trails in the desert. Fid wonders if Poost has an intention for the trail and the jag. Mappo admits that the high priest likely does, and that Poost knows about Icarium and Mappo. Inside Fiddler's head, he wonders what the Trell meant by Poost knows about them. He decides that Mappo wouldn't tell him anyway, so why ask? He starts to think about the rumors he's heard about Icarium, and what he's seen of Icarium didn't fit what he's heard. He concludes his thoughts by wondering what Poost would hoped would be unleashed by these two. Fiddler addresses the Trell and explains that maybe Poost intends to use the traveling companions as the last line of defense against the shapeshifters. Mappo says that it's possible. Fiddler asks, then why don't you just leave? Mappo replies that Icarium is on his own quest, so therefore they shall remain. Fiddler's eyes narrowed as he'd come to the realization that Poost knows that Icarium and Mappo would defend against the Divers and Soul Taken. Poost knows this and relies upon this. Mappo admits that, yeah, you're probably right, but what if Poost attempts the same with the three of you? Fiddler, after some rambling about each of their loyalty, comes to the conclusion that Mappo was right. Fiddler asks if they'll really help them find Tremolor, and that if it truly exists. Mappo says that Icarium had planned on escorting them, and that he hopes that it does. Fiddler is heard hissing, and Mappo asks, well, what's up? Fiddler explains that the light had gone out, and they had been sitting in the dark for some time now. It was also another lengthy guy.
Not quite as bad as the first two, but yeah.
Again, kind of a lot of reaffirmation on what things are going on. You know, I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a little bit more of a better sense of what the Path of Hands is and where it is. You know,
I don't know that I really do, I guess.
You don't think it's in the temple here?
I don't know.
Even though it says that it is?
I don't know. Is it like a fake out? I don't know.
Oh, no. I mean, maybe. I think that I think that, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, you know, because if Poost hadn't been putting out false trails, then I would assume that the Ivers and Soul Taken would have found the path of hands already.
I suppose. I don't know. I guess I didn't really know what I thought. That's all. I'm not like trying to argue against you or
No,
anything.
no, not at all. And also, if you recall in the last section, which will evidently get there, um, this is brought up as well. And we can, yeah, I mean, I'm like 98% confident that what we read earlier with the Path of Hands and Mappo and Icarium and like, the cobbled floor with like the old school deck of dragons is the Path of Hands. And I think that because Shadow Throne is involved and Poost is, intentionally throwing off the D'Ivers and Soul Taken, that they are strategically planning on when the Path of Hands would be found.
Okay.
So, yeah. But my first thought is I thought it was really cool how in the section here, as Mappo, or not Mappo, but as Fiddler is thinking about all these things at the beginning of the section, he's making like a lot of different facial expressions, and Mappo has been seeing an onslaught of Fiddler's facial expressions, but one in particular made Mappo ask Fiddler if he had said something that the sapper didn't agree with. We know that Fiddler was thinking of Cult of Decem or Decem. Mappo had said that the sapper's expression were enough to fill a wall at Decembre's temple. I'm curious as to what this cult would be, because Decem was the first sword, right?
From what I remember.
Yeah. And I don't get a good vibe like I would expect from Fiddler. And I'm wondering if I'm confusing Decembre with Decem Altor. Like, do you see how they're similar? Like, is Decembre a newer ascendant as well?
I don't remember. Let's look in the back of the book here quick.
I didn't find sub Decembre in there.
No? That's what I was just going to look for.
I mean, you can definitely look. I mean, maybe I missed something, but I looked in the front and the back.
It was not in there.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, what cult is Fiddler talking about here? Like, are they two things? Are they the same? Are they similar?
I am not sure.
But I just thought it was interesting, something that concepts that we haven't been unveiled to us.
I'm sure we'll get more of those.
But I'm curious as to how you felt when you read this section, as far as our little pie bet goes.
Like with Apsalar, if she's looking similar. I guess I wasn't expecting Apsalar to like be the one who becomes Shaik, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense. How they're thinking about it, anyways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it was a section that, or maybe I'm confusing this one with the next one. Yeah. But it's definitely giving you the premise that Fiddler, or not Fiddler, but that Apsalar is going to become Shaik, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of started to panic when I read the section the first time.
Because you're not feeling great about things?
Yeah, no, yeah, it definitely made me nervous. Definitely made me nervous because I feel like a pie in the face is coming, and that sucks.
Hey, I mean, it was going to be one of us.
That's fair. There's still potential that it could be you too.
But I doubt it.
You never know. The book could not be real. That's what I'm holding out for. That's what I'm holding out for.
You want a default win? I guess I'm not sure the term I'm looking for.
I'm not sure what you're looking for either.
Sorry, I don't know.
That's okay.
You just want to get even.
Pretty much. I mean, we can tally, but I don't think we need to. I think a pie in the face is enough. But it may make me rethink betting with you again.
Well, I mean, there's that. Unless you're really sure.
I'm sure that the book is not real.
Maybe it's just something we won't get an answer on. I don't know.
Then you don't get a pie in the face. So,
yeah, true.
But oh well. Moving on. So, do you remember? I don't even remember what episode it was, but I want to say it was in Gardens of the Moon, or it even might have been earlier in this book. But Remember how I made the theory that the hounds were de-ivers?
Vaguely, yes. I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, and I didn't really have any evidence to support that. I just kind of felt like they were. But I think that what in Fiddler and Mappo's explanation of the shapeshifters and the Ivers is that they are old. That are even old in elder times. And I remember that the hounds, when they were like first in like talked about really in depthly, is that they were ancient. They were like an ancient force. So I think that kind of reaffirms or maybe gives a little bit of a base towards that theory.
I do remember that they said that they're just old and old as shit, so
Mm-hmm.
could be onto something.
Could be. But I thought it was really cool how we kind of got like a little bit more in depth about the D-Ivers and Soul Taken, which I know was one of your curiosities at the beginning of this book, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we kind of just know enough to know that, like, and I think it was more, or maybe it was Lee that pointed it out, but like Soul Taken, it's like they turn into one thing, and the divers can be like multiple things, or, we got, what the fuck is his face? The guy that was all the rats. We just saw him briefly at the end of one chapter.
Rylandris?
Grillin
Grillin. Yes.
from Eganton.
Yes. Which is like old school Seven Cities.
So that's about all I really got so far is just that, like, diver, they can be like 50,000 different things, but still one, and a soul taken is just like one singular thing.
Yeah. But I mean, have you noticed, and maybe this is just again me overthinking, but with Soul Taken, they tend to be like larger animals.
Like the dragon.
Right, dragons, and I believe the bear. I forget the guy's name already. The bear was a Soul Taken, right? And like the D-Ivers seem to be smaller creatures or like medium-sized creatures, wolves, leopards, rats, insects, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The leopards I thought were kind of big animals, but yeah, maybe they're just on the borderline.
I mean, comparatively to like a bear and a dragon, you know.
No, yeah, you're right.
So, but that's just me. Um, the other thing that I thought was interesting was when Fiddler was thinking about the rumors he had heard about Icarium versus what he's seen of Icarium. And he has the thought that if the rumors were true, it must have been from when Icarium was super young, as he associates that we all do dumb shit when we're younger. And I wonder if this is just the author's way of adding in a little clue about what the Jag had possibly done. You know what I mean? Like I think that Icarium was part of whatever had happened to Mappo's village. And for whatever reason, losing his memories is like his punishment for that.
Do you
I
have any thoughts as to what he might have done?
No, I do
Just
not.
curious.
Do you?
No.
Hmm.
Maybe murdered a village, chopped a bunch of babies up and put them into soup. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's
He was
responsible for like killing the founding father or like killing like one of the witches, you know.
the witches got stitches. Is that what you're saying?
They got more than stitches.
They had to have stitches to be put back together.
Oh, right, yeah. I guess all in all, I feel like this section definitely gave us a lot of answers to things. And, obviously the conversation continues on. But from a character standpoint, I'm really enjoying the way that Fiddler and Mappo are interacting with each other. They almost seem kind of comparable, right? Like Fiddler in his sense of duty won't let his loyalties lie elsewhere. And on the contrary, Mappo seems to be at that point where like I've had enough. You know what I mean? Like how much longer before I get there? But at the end of the day, he doesn't want to get there because he's afraid of how Icarium will react because they indeed have gotten close.
Yeah, they have. I feel like we're gonna get some conflict there. Like it would seem weird to build all this up and then to not have it, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I totally think so. But those are my only thoughts about that section.
All right. Well, are you ready to carry on?
Carry on, my wayward son.
All right, you can eat your fruit snacks here. I'll talk for a minute.
Okay, man.
Fiddler was overwhelmed by the temple. Dust formed piles on the ground, leaking from above. He limped after Mappo as they headed towards the spiral staircase. As they walked, there were Bok, Kerala, and Fiddler thought they were a damn near perfect image of Iskerl Poost in every way. As Mappo and Fiddler went down the stairs, Mappo paused and said Akarium had been here recently. Fiddler asked if sorcery heightened his sensitivity. He replied that it was because of centuries of companionship, like 1,000 chain links. Fiddler wanted to know if he found that burdensome. Mappo only said some burdens were welcomed. Fiddler asked, if the rumors about Akarium being obsessed with time were true, that he builds bizarre contraptions to measure it and places them all around the world. Mappo said the rumors were true. Fiddler continued that Akarium was nearing his goal. He's about to find his answer, the one Mappo would do anything to keep him from finding. Mappo concedes and says yes. He wants to keep him ignorant of the past. Fiddler said that scares him. With no history of the past, there can be no growth. Fiddler had nothing else to say and wondered silently how Akarium has never wondered or questioned their friendship. He saw so much pain in Mappo and wondered what friendship meant to Akarium. Without any memory, it's just an illusion. An agreement only taken on faith. He didn't understand how Akarium could be so generous based on that alone. They continued walking and found Crocus severely irritated. He had Iskerl held up on the wall and off the ground. Fiddler said he was choking him, and Crocus said it's what he deserved. Fiddler said he didn't disagree, but there were shadows gathering. Absalar agreed and said Crocus was only moments away from Hood's Gate himself. Gathering his thoughts, he tossed Poost aside. Poost called Crocus a troubled youth and lamented on his troubled days of youth, especially in his aunt's yard when he tried to make chickens wear hats he had made. Looking at Crocus, he said she would look good in his new and improved hat. Crocus tried to attack Poost again, but Fiddler intercepted him. Crocus said he wants Fiddler to... Fiddler interrupted and said they knew, but ultimately, it's up to her, isn't it? Absalar spoke up and said she had been used by an ascendant once before, and she'd not willingly do it again. Poost hissed that she will not be used. She will command. She will lead. She will dominate everything, in short. It's an enticing offer. Poost can see it in her eyes. She's thinking about it. Absalar said she's not thinking about it. Poost disagrees and says the rope's shadow remains within her, a bond that cannot be broken, and that he is fucking genius. Absalar walked away and Poost followed. Crocus would have if Fiddler had not intervened and said she could handle herself, and that it should be clear even to him. Mappo said there were more mysteries here. Servant, for one. They think he is Absalar's father. Crocus asked if he is one-armed. Akarium says no, but his boat is here and he speaks Malazan. Crocus again says he only has one arm. He lost it at the siege of Lihang. Mappo said a god intervenes. One arm looks younger than the other. And Servant went into hiding once he, Crocus, showed up. Why was Poost hiding him? Akarium spoke up, saying it was not Shadowthrone. Was it not Shadowthrone who arranged the possession? When Cotillion took her, maybe Shadowthrone took him. Crocus uttered a single word. Leverage. Fiddler knew what he meant. He asked Akarium if there was a specific place where Shaik was meant to be reborn. He said he was told the body had not been moved from where it fell to the Red Blades. Fiddler asked if that was within the storm. He received a nod in reply. Crocus was pissed off. He said she was being told right now, be reborn and be reunited with your father. Mappo said a life given for a life taken. They all get ready to leave. So we got a few more answers here, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And something I forgot to mention in the last section, but this, beautifully carries out between sections, is that Fiddler at the beginning of this last section is talking about Quick Ben and how Poost reminds in some way Fiddler of Quick Ben. And is it potentially possible that Quick Ben has just been deceiving us this whole time? And that even though we were told he used to be a high priest of shadow, he is still actually a high priest of shadow?
Run that by me again.
So you remember how in Gardens of the Moon, he visits Shadowthrone And when he
Yeah.
comes back, he explains to everybody that he used to be a high priest of Shadow Throne.
Yep.
Well, what if that was all just baloney and he actually still is a high priest of Shadow?
And maybe that's why he's all pissed off. Like Shadow Throne's pissed off at him.
I don't think that maybe Shadow Throne is pissed off at him, but I think that it's a ploy. It could potentially be a ploy. Like they want people to think that they're upset with each other. I don't know. There's got to be something in him thinking that, Quick Ben is Poost or vice versa, But yeah, I don't know where I can go with that. I'm not going to bet on it, but I'm just saying
I
that there's something there.
Yeah, I think there's something there too, but I don't know why he would I feel like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why he would just hide it, I guess. But
All part of the bigger picture,
yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens. I'm sure there'll be a reveal of some sort, so it's going to be our Rafo moment, I guess.
Right. And we haven't brought that up yet, so
No, we went quite a ways.
But yeah, okay. That was my only tie-in.
No, it's a good thought. I felt where Mappo said some burdens were welcomed. I felt that was kind of a sad thing to say because it feels like over the centuries, however long they've been traveling together, they become friends. But it's just a friendship that's built on lies, right? Like Mappo knows Akarium's getting close to figuring things out, and I'm sure he's probably nervous, like what's going to happen when he figures it out.
Right. Yeah. That reaction, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic, right? Yeah.
Like, is he going to accept him still, or is he going to be mad about it?
Right. I mean, I guess there's so many possibilities as to where it could go. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We'll have to read and find out.
Oh, two for one there.
Yeah.
Another thought that I had was where we have talking about no history with no history of the past, there can be no growth. Just kind of building off what I said before, but that's just kind of really drove it home to me how much time they've spent together. With whatever happened in the past, whatever's being covered up, are they going to be able to overcome it and still be friends or not?
Right.
I don't know. I'd like to think they'll still be friends after, but I mean, I don't know. It could have been something really horrible.
I kind of get the feeling that it is really horrible. So I don't know if I don't know if their friendship will last whatever's taking place here. I mean, there's got to be something in Ikarium's memories that would not make them friends. I don't know.
Maybe Ikarium murdered his family. I don't know.
But you would think that Mappo would have the, I mean, I guess he's had centuries to get over it, but I mean, why would the Trell witches punish him by getting close to someone who murdered his family? That seems like a punishment for Mappo, not Ikarium.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it was a good idea. It was just an idea.
Oh, okay. Fair. Fair.
My last point, I kind of got a chuckle out of this where Poost is talking about these chickens and these hats that he made for him.
Yeah.
And he looks at Crocus and says she would look good in one of his new improved hats. It's got to be Apsalar, right? I don't know who else he would have been talking about.
Oh, yeah. I don't know who else he would be talking about either.
Yeah.
I mean, from a comical standpoint, he's my favorite character in this book.
He's a goofball.
But yeah, he's such a fucking asshole too,
And then we get the kind of the big thing was with man, it was way back when you thought that Servant was Apsalar's father, and it appears that you're right on that.
Yep. I'll take
which was really cool. I was really excited for that because I wasn't. It was one of those things I wasn't sure if I bought into what you were thinking, but I wasn't against it either. I was just kind of on the fence. So I was excited. I was excited to get that and be like, "Oh, he was right." So that was cool.
It was the only thing about that was the whole hand thing, but it was just because I didn't remember that he lost his arm, and it wasn't until this section where it's brought up that he lost it during the Battle of Li Heng. So yeah. And then I'm like, okay, As soon as I read that, I'm like, now the hands make sense,
Yeah.
um,
Right.
because of forced healing, right? Shadow Throne healed him.
So that was, yeah, it was a cool payoff.
Yeah. I thought it was funny that you wrote fiddles in this section.
That was probably an accident.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Fiddles.
Yeah. I don't think I had anything else there. My fucking Google Doc page quit responding, so I'm closing it and opening it again. But if you would like to continue on, I will catch up to you.
Surely I can do that.
Derek, I am Dereker, not Shirley.
Oh, okay, Dereker.
I saw you roll your eyes.
I'm not. Oh, I have my camera on. Whoopsie.
Yeah, I caught you. I saw it.
Damn it. Busted. Well, I guess
That's all right.
I guess I couldn't be like Mappo and hide it from you.
No, could
Oh
not.
wow. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. In a small storage room where everyone's travel packs had been assembled, Mappo rummaged in his bag until he finally found a hard object that was wrapped in hide. He removed the hide to reveal a mace of some kind. Mappo could smell a hint of sage, which meant the hint of sorcery around the weapon was still there. 7 witches had made it so that the sorcery would not fade with time. Icarium was suddenly behind him and tells the Trell that he doesn't recall ever seeing that weapon used. Mappo did not turn to face him. He simply tells Icarium no. Icarium is astonished that he could fit that in his tattered sack. Before responding, the Trell recalls that the sack he used was another trick of the clan witches, a small private warren inside the sack. It shouldn't have lasted this long, but the warren from the weapon must have fed the warren in the sack, or it was the handful of people that Mappo stuffed in there. His final thought was he wondered where all those people went. Kind of dark. Kind of really dark. Mappo sighs and then turns to Mappo. Mappo sighs and then turns to Icarium. Icarium says that the journey to Tremolor will have to wait, as Apsalar is in pursuit of her father. Mappo puts it together that it will lead Apsalar to Shaik's body. Icarium tells Mappo that they should go after her to stop Poost's plan. The Trell explains that it's not just Poost, but likely the whirlwind goddess as well. Mappo saw Icarium frown, so the Trell tells Icarium to think about it. Shaik, anointed seeress of the apocalypse, almost as soon as she was born. Rarku is not a kind place and could easily wear down a chosen one. Maybe Shaik was only supposed to achieve preparation, and the war requires new blood. Icarium says that Fiddler said that the rake forced Shadow Throne to unpossess the lass. The possession was supposed to last longer, thus taking her closer to the Empress. Mappo unveils his theory, and that if that was the idea this whole time, a possessed Apsalar would have been sniffed out by the claws. But an Apsalar no longer possessed, and Cotillion didn't return her to just a simple fisher girl. A scheme within a scheme, so to speak. Icarium asked Mappo if he talked to Fiddler about this. The Trell shook his head and said that it's a possibility that he could be wrong. Maybe Shadow Throne simply saw an opportunity, a means to take advantage of the convergence, a way of plunging the dagger in the midst of all the chaos. It was curious that Apsalar's memories were returning so quickly. They both wonder what their role in it was in this was. They converse about Apsalar becoming Shaik and then defeating the Malazan armies, forcing Lucine to intervene. When she does, armed with Contillion's skills and knowledge, she kills Lucine and the end of the empire. Icarium has a disturbing thought, and more than likely, a new emperor or empress was Shadow. Mappo said this was a worrying thought, as he just had a vision of Poost. He shakes himself from this vision, throws his magic sack over his shoulder. Mappo asks Icarium that they keep this conversation to themselves. Icarium nodded in agreement and then said that he feels closer to discovering who he is, and Tremolor is suspected to be time-related. Mappo responded by saying that this was what he heard as well, but what sense he could make of it, he didn't know. Icarium thinks that it'll provide answers for him, but this question of the Trell is, should he, and how would that change him? Mappa wonders why he is being asked this question. Icarium responds that within the Trell reside memories of Icarium, none of which have been revealed. Inside Mappo's head, he's going, not this conversation again. Mappo explains, what value would it be to seek to become the Trell's version of the Jag? Mappo could see Icarium nodding, likely echoes of this conversation returning. The Trell hoped it was nothing else. Icarium has a feeling that Mappo is involved in all this, and that the Trell is part of the hidden truth. Mappo's heart froze, as it's never gotten that far. Is the proximity to Tremolor nudging that gate open? They sat staring at each other. A thought occurs to Mappo that between them, a friendship hung in the balance. A friendship neither of them understands. With a hand to Icarium's shoulder, Mappo says that they should join the others. So nice little cool section. The description of the weapon, it wasn't distinctively said as to what he pulled out, but from the way it was described, it sounded like a mace. Is that what you got?
I think more or less, yeah.
Okay, cool. And I thought it was interesting how this mace was described. A large thigh bone from possibly a bird. But also, it said that Mappo had seen the whole skeleton assembled, as they had found the whole beast. I get the feeling that this is Ericsson's way of bringing dinosaurs in, or making a reference to them.
Yeah, I definitely felt the same way. Like, well, because they talked about like the skull or whatever, and like the teeth. Like, yeah, it made me think of like a dinosaur.
Yeah. So just thought that
Something reptilian, anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was like a little cool little cameo, I guess. Maybe something that not everybody picked up on. Whether it's true or not, maybe we ask him. Be like, did you mean to have Mappo carry a dinosaur thigh bone?
Speaking of his magic ball sack, I know that's what you're. Like it made me think of the Animander Riggs fucking wagon.
Oh yeah, sword, Dragnapur.
Oh yeah, the sword, and then you go on the sword, and then there's like the wagon just churning along.
Right, with the whole the people stuffed in there.
Yeah, so he said he stuffed some people in there, and like who knows what happened to him? They're just fucking falling through infinite space or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, who knows? It's really funny that like even just going all the way back to the first chapter from Gardens of the Moon, right? And just like, what if that is their plan the whole time? Like, what if the encounter with Rake in Gardens of the Moon was all just set up so that they could like make further use of Apsalar? Like, how fucking maniacal is that? To think that deeply about how you're gonna fuck over Lucine by using some random Fisher girl? Like, that is fucking just diabolical, and I love it.
It seems like there's a lot of moving parts in there to account for everything to go your way for that to work out, don't you think?
Oh, well, absolutely. But I mean, is it really just they're taking advantage of an unseen opportunity, or is this calculated? I feel like both are possibilities. I think it would be much more like demonical. That's not even a word. But you know what I mean? It would just be so much more disastrous if it was calculated. Like, I think it would just give a real big sense of severity to Shadow Throne to the reader if it was calculated. You know, like, I don't want to fuck with these guys.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I definitely think either's a possibility. Sorry, I don't really have any more than that.
No, it's fine. And then, you caught on to my magic sack over the shoulder. Little comment there. I don't know. Yep. I don't know why my head went there, but it was just funny.
It's because you're a dirty boy, Justin.
Yeah, I should go shower.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, it definitely sounds like Icarium is definitely getting closer to the truth, because this conversation had never gotten that far, which is, again, another sad part, is that Mappo, I'm sure, is probably having the same conversations with Icarium. So is it really friendship anymore? Like, if there is nothing more that it can be genuinely talked about, because he's heard it all before.
I don't know.
But it seems that Tremolor, right, is some type of time device. So is it possible that Icarium created it?
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Right. Maybe yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's weird. Maybe in order for it to be used. Yeah, I don't know. But that's definitely what my mind went to is when
That's
that was
an
brought up.
interesting thought.
So, but yeah, I guess those are all the thoughts that I had about that section.
That's interesting on Tremolor. I hadn't thought about that.
Hmm.
I like it.
All right.
All right. Section 6 here then. Fiddler was on his horse at the base of the cliff. Bulkarala are running amuck as supplies were being lowered to the ground. One of the creatures got its tail stuck in the rope and was squawking relentlessly. Iskarol Poost was trying to hit it with a rock, but was very unsuccessful. Fiddler watched Mappo and Icarium. He could see some tension between them, but it didn't seem to affect their work. He thought, change comes to them all. He looked over to Crocus, who had impatience written all over him. Fiddler had seen him practicing his knife-fighting skills and noticed a change. Before, Crocus was too aware of himself behind the knife. Getting cut was a part of knife fighting, and it was nasty business. Crocus would do more than hold his own now. It was a hot and hazy day. Dust in the air from the whirlwind, which was at least 10 leagues away. The supplies hit the ground, and Fiddler freed the Bakurala and was bitten for his efforts. Fiddler called out to Mappo to set the pace. Mappo and Icarium started down the trail. As they took off, Fiddler happened to look back and saw Bulkarala bidding their farewells, and Iskarol Poost nearly falling out of the window trying to broom the creatures away from the wall. Pretty short section there, and pretty, I guess, kind of lighthearted in the sense you got Iskarol trying to use a broom to sweep these little creatures away from the wall, and just I kind of feel like it ties back to that comment earlier in the chapter where somebody thought they were just like the spitting image of Poost.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Boa Krala.
Yeah, but I didn't really have anything to take away from that, really.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a transitional section, right? They're transitioning from one state to another, pretty much. Yeah. I just outside of the comic relief, I didn't have much to talk about either.
Other than I guess we know Crocus is now an efficient knife fighter.
Yeah, that is true. So he's kind of I guess it's a way of showing us that he's growing, right? I mean, he doesn't seem to be as annoying as he was in the first book, right?
We haven't had a ton from his perspective either.
Yeah. So maybe that helps. But yeah, if you're good, I'm good.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Sweet. Renegade Corbulo Dom's army was spread over grassy hills. The pickets outside the camp were marked by 3 rows of crucified prisoners. Kalam lay on his belly, his eyes on the nearest crucified victim, a young Malazan boy, maybe 12 or 13. Spikes had been impaled through his hands and feet. His nose and eyes were missing as they had been torn off, yet he still lived. Kalam knew that he could do nothing to save the boy or the other suffering Malazans. He felt cold, and the image he saw before him was etched into his mind. The Empire would exact revenge, if it was able. If Kalam was successful in killing Lasine, then maybe he could help guide someone into avoid ruling the way Lasine did. Quick Ben and Kalam had someone in mind. And if all goes to plan, that is. But for the Malazan he saw before him, it was far too late. Kalam was laying on an ant's nest, and the tiny insects did not like it. This forced Kalam to edge back to where he could crouch. There wasn't any sign of Apt, so he went back to where the others were. Manala rose holding a crossbow. Kalam shook his head, and they both slipped behind some bushes to rejoin the group. Kaneb had another fever. Selb's action seemed to be in a panicked state as she was tending to her husband. The children were tending to their horses. Manala asked how bad it was. Kalam tells her that there isn't a way around the Apocalypse army. Manala tells him that it wouldn't be so hard to ride in as a soldier of the Apocalypse, get picket duty on the south side, and then slip away during the night. Kalam answers this rhetorical question by explaining that he carries sorcery and the camp's mages would pick up on it. At this time, he reaches into his pack and brings out an object that Quick Ben had given him. Manala observes that it's simply a rock. Kalam admits that it's nothing fancy and then explains that most mages realize that no one would be stupid enough to steal a rock. Kalam explains to Manala that this rock was meant to be a last resort. Manala asks what it did. Kalam thought to himself that he didn't have the slightest idea what it did. He recalls Quick Ben telling him that it's his shaved knuckle in the hole. This rock would allow him to stride right into Lacine's throne room. Seeing a flat rock on the ground, he tells Manala to get everyone ready. He placed the sorcerer's stone on the flat rock and then found something to smash it with. Kalam was shocked when it shattered like clay. A darkness swept over them. The children could be heard calling out to their mother. The horses were uneasy, thinking to himself that they were in the Imperial Warren. He wanted to strangle Quick Ben. Kalam had heard rumors of this warren existing, but by those rumors it was said that the Imperial Warren did not cover much ground. But if this warren could take him from 7 cities to Lacine, then it most certainly could reach Genabacchus. And if that was true, then Quick Ben could have a claw over his shoulder already. The family had settled the horses and were riding them. Kalam mounted his own horse and then started moving. Manala asked if they were in a warren and if they were safe from Corbeil Dam. Kalam grunts and says that he hoped they were safe. Manala asks how they knew which way they were going. Kalam answers her by saying that Quick Ben had said to imagine the place, and then Warren would shift to that destination. Manala asks what Kalam had in mind. After some pause and some silence, he responds by saying the city of Erin. Manala wonders if they are safe here. Kalam gives a response that doesn't make Manala confident in her question. Kalam was brought back to the vision of the Malazan boy. Taking a look at Kaneb and Selb's children, he tells Manala that this was better risk than a different outcome. Manala asks if he could explain what that comment meant. Kalam finally says enough talk, and he's got a city to visualize. So, as brutal as that beginning scene is, I think that it's really meant to give us readers a view into Kalam's fears. He fears insignificance. And what more insignificant can it get than to die that way? Kalam wants to tell the boy that he won't be forgotten, but he knows these are all lies. It also gives us an extreme sense of hopelessness, and as much as Kalam wants to help, he knows he can't. It was just such a beautifully captured scene, but makes you sad to read it, you know?
Yeah, it was pretty dark and brutal, and just, I mean, it's a freaking kid, and he's got no eyes, and his nose is cut off, and I mean, he may as well be dead, but he's not.
Yeah, and he's just suffering, right?
Yeah, like that would suck a lot.
Yes, it would. It would really suck. But do you remember the whole part about Quick Ben and Kalam having someone in mind?
To be the new Emperor, Empress. Yeah, I was trying to kind of think of who they might have been thinking of.
But if Quick Ben is Poost, then they have Apsalar in mind. And
Kalam that's kind of what I felt like.
Or they just conveniently coincide with Shadow Throne, right? Or it's all calculated, right? Like this is a scheme within a scheme. So I feel like those two things are related there. And I think Kalam is all on board. They just first have to kill Lacine.
Simple. Just go kill one person.
Right, yes. And I'm sure it's not going to be that way. But yeah, who knows? Maybe Lacine will die next book. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of felt like Apsalar, but then it's just kind of like, well, there's still, 7 books to go. Like, there's certainly going to be somebody we haven't met yet. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like it makes sense, but then I'm like, well, I don't know. Is it just too obvious it doesn't make sense? I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, in total agreement. It's like, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, it's too early to tell,
Yeah.
But I also thought another thing was interesting is that Kalam compares himself to a god who is basically inhibiting the ants' home, and they all stood up to do something about it, which is kind of like a reflection of the way society should be, but they're not. They're just arguing with each other about what is best. you know? And if they all rose together, they could essentially banish gods for good.
I know they had made that point about the god, but I guess I didn't think that deeply on it like you did. But I
Sorry.
think it's a good point. You don't have to be sorry.
This is just what I do, man.
Yeah, you got nothing to be sorry for.
Cool. Well, I thought the whole rock thing was funny because I just thought it was a good sense of humor. And I can imagine Manala's reaction to when Kalam pulls out the rock. Um, However, we know this isn't the real reason that was like the idea that was being tossed around in Kalam's head. It was because he touched the Book of Dryjana, which wasn't even real, so he would have been fine anyway, you know. So he's basically telling Manala that the rock is the reason why he couldn't just, as a soldier of the apocalypse, slip in and get picket duty at the south side and then slip away. But in Kalam, he fears that the mages in Corbeil Dam's army would pick him out because he touched the book.
I still don't think the book is a fake.
That's fine. That's fine. We will
I'm
we will
just
see.
I'm digging my heels in and I'm going to be stubborn on
That's okay. That's what got me a pop in the face too. So
it. We'll come out even.
yeah, probably. But I guess we'll just have to wait and find out, right? Waffo.
Yeah, that's true.
The only other thing that I pulled out was I feel like when Manala asked what the rock did, Kalam doesn't even really answer her, but I think that he's got this like weird, strong, silent, mysterious type going on, which Manala seems to be attracted to, or yeah, I don't know. I got the image of courting here when he doesn't even answer her question about the rock. Doesn't make sense, but that's just my headcanon that I got.
I guess I don't remember feeling that way, but that's just me.
Yeah. So do you think that this conch shell that Fiddler was given, do you think that it maybe has a similar use?
I kind of forgot about that because I remember the last thing I remembered about that is he said he was going to sell it when he got to whatever city.
Right. But I mean, who would steal a shell? So why not infuse magic with it?
Yeah, probably nobody. Most likely nobody, unless somebody knows what they're looking for, I guess.
Right, exactly. But I mean, it kind of sounds like, if I recall correctly, back in those chapters, Fiddler was worried about being caught because he had it, like if mages could pick it up. So I think that, it must have maybe a similar purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess with that, I don't really have anything else to talk about that section. I thought it was well done, again, kind of very transitional, right? So
Right.
progressive.
Well, we'll take my last section here. It's another shorter one. Lostara Yill approached the gaping hole. She had never actually seen one before, but knew exactly what it was. A portal into another warren. She knew the assassin had taken a shortcut to bypass the army standing between him and Aaron. She knew she would have to follow. She wouldn't be able to slip through Corvolo Dom's army unnoticed. Still, she hesitated. Suddenly, a man popped through the hole. He apologized for startling her and said he didn't intend to fall into that hole. Instantly, this man knew what she was. A red blade, and an officer at that. So they were allies. She wanted to know who he was. He said his name was Pearl, and if she wants to keep talking, they should do it inside the portal before it closes. Lostara asked why he couldn't keep the door open. He said this was a door where no door should be, and north of their location, the Imperial Warren was filled with unwelcome guests, though their entry was more primitive in nature. Also, since it appears she didn't make this portal, Pearl suggests that they take advantage of it. Lostara says she isn't going anywhere with him until she knows who, rather what, he is. Pearl says he is obviously a claw. Who else has the privilege of traveling the Imperial Warren? Lostara says someone else had granted themselves that privilege. Pearl's eyes sparkled and said she would tell him about it. Lostara agreed to travel and tapped her mount into motion, entering the Warren. Oh, I'm just it's kind of a neat little section. For how short it was, kind of a lot still happens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But what was your question?
Oh, I was just gonna, I know that we talked about this, but I think it's interesting. The whole Pearl thing. We were met with a character named Pearl in Gardens of the Moon, and they were a demon.
Yeah,
But this dude seems to be a claw. So, I guess in traditional books, you kind of have people that, I mean, you don't really come across the same names, right? And I think that's just kind of a cool way to break the mold, by having a couple of characters have the same name.
yeah, and it's not like you got like John and John.
Right. Yep. Same spelling and everything.
Yeah,
Anyway, that was my thought.
no, it's a good thought. I didn't think of that, but yeah, normally you don't see that, especially I guess an unusual name for somebody. Yeah, I'm
Right.
sure that's probably not his real name. That's just like his a nickname, essentially. I would guess. Um, but I would imagine when he's talking about these unwelcomed guests, he's referring to divers and soul taken. I don't know what else it would be. But then he talks about their entry and how it's more primitive and in nature. And so that makes me wonder if, like, when he says in nature, if he means that literally. I don't know. I just kind of get a weird vibe about that.
Well, I think that it's going back to, I guess, kind of what I would call, how Sormo Nath pulls up the past to instead of the Warren because they're filled with Divers and Soul Taken. So I think that the Divers and Soul Taken are just finding other ways to get into these Warrens.
They're sneaky little bastards.
Sneaky little bastards. And also, I mean, it's I think we're just kind of unveiling a lot of like what happened prior, like the Elder Warrens, the way that life existed during the Elder Warrens time, you know. Everything was a little bit more primitive and old school, you know. It's
Sure,
like
sure.
I want to make a phone call, but I don't have a cell phone or I don't have an iPhone. I don't have the latest. I have this old school dial phone. I'm just going to call it up, you know. Same way, but a little bit older methodology is kind of like the comparison that I'm getting here, if that makes any damn sense.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Those were really my only kind of thoughts on that. So,
I
unless you had
mean,
anything else,
do you think it's convenient that this dude just pops out here? Is that
I guess
purely coincidence? Like,
maybe that's like the oddball thing. Like, because we really didn't mention that. Like, yeah, how coincidental is that? That like he just happened to be in there and happened to like fall through there. That
right.
seems kind of odd.
It does seem really odd. But at the same time, all three groups are technically on the same side, right?
The red blades, the claw.
And the Malazan bridge burners. I mean, granted, the bridge burners are meant to be outcasted, you know, like that's by design. So, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, it's just I find it just a little bit too convenient, I guess.
Yeah, it does seem fishy.
Right, right,
Like where was he going? Where was he coming from? And now you just happen to meet a red blade.
right, exactly. But yeah, who knows where it goes? I guess we'll just have to see what happens.
For sure.
But yeah, I guess I'm ready to take it home if you are.
Bring it home, buddy.
All right. The Imperial Warren was slower to close than anyone could have anticipated. 7 hours after the red blade and the claw slipped into the Warren, the stars glittered in the sky. Panic and alarm were heard from Corblo Dom's camp. All 1,300 Malazan children had vanished. No one saw what had happened. The X-shaped crosses were bare. In the darkness of the plain, the shadows were strangely alive. Apt strode into the plain, her fangs bared in a natural sort of grin, her single forelimb holding the limp body of a young boy. The demon sat and waited. Shadows gathered to hover before a portalway. A vague shape took form. Glowing eyes of hounds flanked its side. The figure says that he thought he lost the Aptorian, snared so long ago by Shaik and the doomed goddess. He sees that she's been ambitious since she was the mistress to a demon lord. The figure asked what it was that he was supposed to do with over 1,000 dying mortals. Is he supposed to heal them? Is Cotillion supposed to be their uncle? Are the hounds supposed to be like puppies? Apt was replying in a series of clicks and hisses. The shadow figure is baffled to learn that Kalam wanted to save them. Kalam knew it was impossible to save them, and only revenge was possible. Now, I must exhaust my powers healing 1,000 children? Apt spoke but one word, and that was servants. The figure was appalled at this as he wondered how Shadowkeep would hold them all. Apt said nothing. The figure came to a realization as he hung on the word servants, that because they were left to die by the Malazan, and their fates left to that of Shaik's rebellion, that these souls would have mixed feelings in their malleable souls. He tells Apt that she is lucky, as he sees long-term benefits to her act. Apt spoke in a series of hisses and clicks. The shadow figure repeats back what she said, and that she wished to claim the boy in her clutches. If she was to resume with the bridge burner, how exactly would she handle conflicting responsibilities? Apt replied, the figure calls her a coddled bitch, and that no wonder she fell from the demon Aptorian's favor. After some silence, he glided forward and told her that forced healing requires a price. He tells Apt that this child will be unpredictable. He laughed as the wounds began to close on the boy's face. The shadow figure asked what types of eyes Apt wanted the boy to have. Apt responded. The figure seemed to flinch, but then laughed again. As he said that eyes are love's prism, the boy's head jerked back as the wounds and broken bones were mended and put back. Once he was finished healing the boy, he turned to study Quickben's handiwork. The boy climbed to Apt's back, ironically wearing the same smile that Apt had. The shadow figure tells Apt to continue following those that are following Kalam. The figure is confident that Kalam is not going to kiss Lacine's cheeks. Apt hesitated, but finally spoke one last time. The shadow god replied, saying that the high priest alarms him. If Poos cannot deceive the hunters on the path of hands, then this realm will become very crowded. His realm will become very crowded. The shadow god slipped away, and with his hounds following. He is heard complaining that it was a simple task, and how hard it was to find good help these days. Apt spoke words of comfort to the boy, and he nodded. They both then slipped into the warren as it closed. A very strange chapter, or not chapter, but section. I wasn't really expecting to have any type of interaction with the Aptorian, you know?
Especially where we see it like talking, having a conversation.
Yeah, right. Because, I guess it's always made out to be that the Aptorian's kind of just a dumb animal, but clearly there's intelligence there. And the fact that she's enacting Kalam's wishes, clearly she feels some type of empathy for Kalam.
I thought it was weird because, Kalam, he's like, oh man, I wish I could save all these kids, but I can't. So we're just going to have to fucking kill everybody. That's the best we can do. And now somehow Apt snatched them all up. I don't know. And then this kid that she's got in her clutches, on her arm. Did you get the sense that when Shadow Throne healed him, he came to have one eye? That's what I thought happened.
No, I didn't get that.
Oh, that's what I felt like happened. Because he talked about how bones are moving around in the face and stuff. Let's see if I can see it here.
I think he was just talking about the eye sockets in general.
Yeah. So it says the boy's head jerked back, the bones altering shape, the twin gaping orbits merging to form a single larger one above the nose ridge that branched to either side, then ran up the outer edge of the socket in a thin, raised ridge. An eye to match the demon's blurred into existence.
Oh, well, damn. I guess I totally missed that. Okay, then. Yeah, so we've got ourselves a little Cyclops.
2 Cyclops.
Because of the Aptorian.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I forgot she had one eye. So, okay. Well, that makes much more sense.
I just remember reading that and I was like, oh, man, that's... Well, I guess one eye is better than just having 2 holes in your head.
Yeah. I mean, at least you could see, but you've got no depth perception there.
I mean, who knows? Because I always thought, it was a big eye, so who knows what it's like.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I guess I mean, again, kind of a weird section, but the only thing that I really had here was when, Shadow Throne is healing this boy, the flesh recovers while the mind writhes in the memory of pain. This reminded me of when Ganoz came back from Hood's Gate and Mallet was trying to heal him. It was said that the pain was gone, however, the torment of the death, those mental wounds were something he couldn't be healed. So I don't know why that brought me there. I thought it was just a cool way to tie things into each other and set the precedent for when forced healing comes again. I don't know.
Huh, I didn't even think of that, but I think that's a good point.
And then the other thing is that I get the feeling that, the figure is repeating what the Aptorian said, but what exactly is Aptorian saying here? Like I think it's interesting that the author is choosing to not tell us exactly what she's saying, but how the figure is interpreting what she's saying. Just think it's interesting.
I felt like Aptorian was pleading her case to heal these children.
Right. That's kind of what I got too. But I guess it was just an interesting take, I don't know if everyone's going to come to that same conclusion,
Yeah, they may not, but we'll just tell them they're wrong then.
True, true. But yeah, dude, I don't have anything else for that section. It was really cool. Um, very interesting dynamic. Again, I was not expecting, Shadow Throne to visit the Aptorian. So clearly the Aptorian is definitely kind of a major role in Shadow Throne's plan, yeah, I'm guessing. But yeah.
It seems to be. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess outside of that, I don't have anything else for this spectacular chapter. I'm really excited
Well,
to read on. It's been like 2 weeks since I've been reading.
yeah.
So
And we've got a pretty big chapter. It's like 52 pages.
yep. 421 to like 470 something.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. That'll be a big one. So yeah, it'll be good to move on and get another chapter under here.
Absolutely. But yeah, dude, I guess it's been great. I won't keep you, but yeah, I guess enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
Yeah, you too, and thank you again, everybody out there listening. I know it's probably been a few episodes, but I know at one point I put something out there for somebody to email us, and maybe we would read that on the air, but we haven't got any emails yet. So if somebody wants to email us, that'd be cool. Just know that channel is open. But otherwise, yeah, feel free to check us out on Twitter. Check out our Patreon. Leave us a review on or rating, whatever you want to call it, on something, Apple or Google or Spotify or whatever. I don't think we've been very good about looking at those. I don't really know how. It doesn't seem very user friendly, but we can figure that out. Maybe we'll have to dig deeper into that and see if there's anything there. But I know you're pretty good about checking the comments on the YouTube videos. So check out the YouTube also. Stuff is there. Our live stream from last week is there. We don't have the audio posted yet, so the only place that is on YouTube for the time being.
We have a 4.9 rating on Apple Podcasts. We have 6 5-stars and 1 4-star.
Oh, sweet. That's cool.
Yeah.
And let's see. I think we're at like 302 Twitter followers now.
Oh, holy shit. Last time I heard it was like 270 something.
So yeah, we're climbing up there.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, another great episode. I look forward to doing this again next week.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'm sure we'll chat when we watch The Last of Us.
Absolutely. Well, I guess take her easy, Dereker.
See you, man.
Bye.
Bye.